This is part 2 of my series on mindfulness and creativity. And this part 2 is about what I call open and closed mode. I pinched this terminology from one of my creative heroes, John Cleese of Monty Python fame. He also speaks on creativity with great eloquence, I have to say, and he talks about these two different thinking modes. Open mode that is like a playful, imaginative, uncritical. It's relaxed. You're not worrying, you're not analyzing. It's childlike. So that's what we typically think of as the creative mode, where we come up with new ideas and we're not hesitating. It's free of fear. That's very important. Now the closed mode is really different, but it's also very important. It's very focused. It's restricted. It may be anxious because you might be under time pressure, for example, when someone's got a deadline to finish a project. It's what you might use when you're editing. You're being very critical. Actually, you're cutting out. This is not good. That's not good. You have to be judgmental. And it's analytical, and so it's very tight, it's restricted. So both of these are extremely important in creating any quality piece of work, whether it's a music or a piece of computer code, I imagine. I'm not a coder, but certainly inventing something new. You need both. You need to come up with ideas, and you need to sort them out and analyze them and criticize them and select the best ones and refine them. So both of these are very important, but the key thing to understand is that in terms of the way our mind works, we can't do both at once. They interfere with one another. What typically happens is that the closed mode, which is kind of more like we develop more as adults, tends to suppress the open mode. Just as like an adult will tell a child, "Oh, stop doing that," or "That drawing's bad," or "You can't use that color with that color," whereas the child would do. There's no rules. They'll make it up as they go along, and children are very typically way more imaginative than adults. They also laugh a lot more, by the way, a lot more. So there's a lot to be said for learning to reconnect with our childlike mode. I'm going to look at that more deeply in the next session. So John Cleese talks about open and closed mode, but he's not the first person to speak about this. This is a very widely understood idea amongst creativity thinkers or anybody who looks at this closely. Walt Disney was very aware of this, and he actually has a floor plan for some of their Disney rooms, where the building has 3 rooms. One of them is called the Dreamer's Room. And in that room, you're only allowed to come up with ideas, no criticism. The next room is called the Critic's Room, which is where you take all those ideas and you sort them out and you get rid of the terrible ones and you come up with something that might work, a story for a film, or which is probably what they might be working on. The third room, which he added to this, just open and closed, is called the Realist's Room, and that's where the producers come in with the budget. And they decide whether or not they can afford this good idea that's been refined by the critics. So once again, it's a process, a physical process of separating the modes. So in one room, you just dream up ideas and you try and come up with something original, and it's completely open, no holds barred. And the next room, you're refining those ideas and honing it into something usable. So it's very much the same idea as sort of open and closed. So for anyone who wants to come up with new ideas and develop them, this is the main thing to remember: is keep these processes separate. Don't try and mix them up. This is one of the big arguments against multitasking. Some people think multitasking is great, I can do all these things at once. You won't do any of them well, actually. And this has been demonstrated through research. This multitasking is a myth, or the value of multitasking is pretty much a myth, because the quality of whatever you do when you're trying to do different things and switching from one mode to the other constantly is going to be very poor. So you need to focus for a while, or even, that's probably the wrong word, because I'm thinking about open mode where you're kind of unfocused. You're dreaming, you're daydreaming. Very important. That's why a lot of creative artists, they'll go for a walk, they'll go into the forest, or sometimes if someone's stuck with a problem, they'll sleep on it. and then the next day they'll be in the shower and suddenly the solution will pop into your mind. So that kind of open or rest mode is very important to allow ideas to incubate and percolate, and then the solution pops up from the unconscious or the intuition.